Welcome to the 700 Club. Senate Republicans are taking yet another shot at repealing and replacing Obamacare. They've come up with yet another new health care plan, and they expect to vote on it as soon as next week.
President Trump says he's waiting with pen in hand to sign a new bill, but first the Senate has to pass it, and that won't be easy. Gary Lane has the story.
Some key Republicans rejected the original Senate bill, meaning it would not gain approval without revisions. So it was back to the drawing board with a new health care plan. The revised Senate bill now provides billions of dollars in government subsidies to tackle the national opioid epidemic. And it allows cheaper plans that include reduced benefits. Critics argue Obamacare forced some people to pay for services they don't need, like pregnancy expenses for senior citizens or geriatric care for millennials. That change alone could bring down costs for some Americans. The measure was pushed by Texas Senator Ted Cruz, so will he now support the bill?
Yes.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell now says he expects a vote on the bill sometime next week. Not one Democrat is expected to cast a vote for it.
The meat of this bill is exactly the same as it was before, and in some ways, they've somehow managed to make it even worse.
The support of moderate GOP senators like Susan Collins will be essential if Republicans are to get the votes needed for approval. But she's ready to vote against the revised plan because Medicaid spending won't grow as quickly as planned.
We're talking about the health infrastructure in rural America and some of our most vulnerable citizens.
President Trump, in his 700 Club interview this week with Pat Robertson, made it clear he'll be upset if Republicans don't act to repeal and replace Obamacare.
It has to get passed. They have to do it. They have to get together and get it done.
What will happen if they don't?
Well, I don't even want to talk about it because I think it would be very bad. I will be very angry about it, and a lot of people will be very upset. But I'm sitting waiting for that bill to come to my desk. I hope that they do it. They've been promising it for years. They've been promising it ever since Obamacare, which has failed.
Even Vice President Pence weighed in, pressing Senate Republicans to meet up to their campaign commitments.
We urge every member of the United States Senate to roll their sleeves up and get this bill to the president's desk and get it there soon.
Gary Lane, CBN News.
Well, let's hope they can get together and actually get something passed. This has been on again and off again for too long, and the president's pen is ready. In other news, another deadly terrorist attack in Jerusalem today led to a showdown at the Temple Mount. John Jessup has that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
That's right, Gordon. 3 Israeli Arabs murdered 2 policemen, that during a terror attack in Jerusalem's Old City. A police unit chased the terrorists and killed them during the shootout on the Temple Mount. Authorities say the 2 murdered police officers were both Arab, and the 3 terrorists came from an Arab town in northern Israel. 2 of them posed for a selfie before the attack. Israel's president said Arab leadership inside and outside Israel should take a clear position against this criminal attack. Well, when Palestinian terrorists attack or kill Israelis, they and their families can receive what are called martyr payments. And this week, the Senate took one step closer to passing legislation that defunds the Palestinian government until those payments stop. Abigail Robertson brings us that story.
It's bad enough for a parent to hear about the death of a child. It's even worse to learn the person who killed him was praised and rewarded by a government largely funded by U.S. taxpayer dollars. That happened to the parents of American student Taylor Force when a 21-year-old Palestinian man murdered Taylor while he was visiting Israel.
No society should reward their children for being terrorists.
U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham hopes to pressure the Palestinian Authority to stop their martyr payment policy by proposing a bill that would cut the almost $400 million in U.S. funding to the group.
We have a duty to defend our citizens and not empower people who will kill them.
Graham thinks there is no hope for a 2-state solution in the Middle East if the Palestinian Authority continues to reward people for being terrorists. According to the Jerusalem Post, the PA argues the bonuses only benefit legitimate combatants, but the Israeli and U.S. governments say this is immoral.
Abbas said the following, the president of the Palestinian Authority: I will leave office before I stop martyr payments and before I stop paying money to prisoners. How do you do peace with a government who would actually take money and pay their children to kill other people's children?
The Senate committee reviewing the bill mostly agree this needs to end, but worry about unintended consequences to Israel's security if all funding is cut off. Many want to see changes added to ensure humanitarian aid is not affected and that this would not lead to the collapse of the PA.
We're going to keep that aid flowing with one condition. The Secretary of State has to certify that the Palestinian government is changing their behavior. If he can't do that, we'll cut that money off.
Graham says he's confident that after revisions are made to the bill, the Senate will see a vote on it this year with overwhelming support. Reporting from Capitol Hill, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
Thanks, Abigail. Gordon, this represents a major policy change.
It does and doesn't all at the same time. The draft of the bill has an out that if the Secretary of State can certify he's seeing progress with the Palestinian Authority on the issue, then the funding continues. But this is something that hasn't come up new. This has been there for some time. You go to Ramallah, you can find a square, the center of the town, and this is the capital of the Palestinian Authority. You go to Ramallah, in the center, there's a town square named after the refrigerator bomber. And here's a guy, his claim to fame is he packed a refrigerator full of explosives and then dragged it to Zion Square in the middle of Jerusalem and blew it up and killed innocent people. Now, if you want to say he's some kind of combatant, that he's some kind of hero, I'm not going to go along with that. But the Palestinian Authority did, and they've done this for decades. It's nothing new. And to say that somehow there's a new effort here, the Senate took it up about a decade ago, and in that, the same arguments that if we pull out our funding, the Palestinian Authority will collapse, there'll be chaos there, what about the humanitarian needs of the people? But until we address the fundamental problem, this is violent anti-Semitism at its worst. They are paying people to kill Jews. And we need to understand it and name it for what it is. And it's been going on for decades. It's not new. And your tax dollars are going to the families of these terrorists in order to pay them a monthly fee. And the terrorists know that before they make the attacks. They know their families are going to be provided for. And it's amazing to me the U.S. government hasn't awakened to this earlier and hasn't put a stop to it earlier. And if it means the collapse of the Palestinian Authority, well, then so be it. And if it means a humanitarian crisis, then so be it. The basis of this entire crisis is violent anti-Semitism on the part of the Palestinian Authority. And again, it's not new. It goes all the way back to the 1920s. The various Arab incitements against the Jews, various massacres against the Jews. Since the founding of Israel, the Palestinians have been bent on wiping Israel off the map. And their goal is not a two-state solution. Their goal is the elimination of Israel. Now, we all need to understand this history, and we need to understand it and let our elected representatives know it's time to stop the pay-for-slave program in the Palestinian Authority. We should not support terrorism, and we need to get this history. Now, I've got something for you that will get you informed on this. It's called In Our Hands, The Battle for Jerusalem, and it's the true history of what happened in 1967. And when you see in today's headlines there's a terror attack on the Temple Mount, well, this is the source of it. You see in the headlines talk about East Jerusalem, the West Bank. This is the battle. This is the war. That Israel acquired the West Bank, acquired East Jerusalem. And you see the terrorism that happened before. You see the ethnic cleansing that happened before, all under Jordanian rule. So it's yours. Gift of $15. All you have to do is call us. 1-800-700-7000. Get it. When you know the history, then you'll understand today's headlines.